for Monday, August 19, 2019, in the City Council chambers at 6:06. Amber, have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart, absent. Commissioner Dowell.
Here.
Vice Chairman Wasden.
Here.
Chairman Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Dowling.
Here.
Commissioner Norwood.
Here.
Commissioner Sherman. Here.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our July 15, 2019 regular meeting. Do I see any additions, corrections, or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes from. Count me off guard. I move we approve the minutes from the July 15th, 2019 Planning and Zoning meeting, which took place at 6 p.m. It's a Monday evening. Rather warm that night, as I recall.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dowell seconds it. Vice Chairman's motion. All in favor? Aye. All right. The next section is a call to the public, and I don't see anybody that, we haven't had any cards sent up to us. I don't see anybody that probably will doing that, so we'll skip over that and go to old business, which thankfully we have none. And on to new business. JUANITAS Restaurant DR 19009, a request for design review for a 2,600 square foot restaurant located at 245 South Main Street. Mr. Paget, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. As you stated, this is a request design review 19009 for JUANITAS Restaurant. Location is 245 South Main Street. So where that is on Main Street, between Birch and Aspen. It's a zoning there is C1, which is like commercial. Proposal is for a 2,300 square foot restaurant. It would be a single story building. Currently, there are 2 residential units on the property, on the south side of the property, and then there's a vacant area to the north side of the property. The ultimate development of this would include a lot split, which would put the 2 residential units onto their own parcel, and then the new restaurant on the north side of the parcel. There would be a shared driveway accessing both residential units and the future restaurant. So because of that, the shared access agreement would be required for both properties. Currently, they're owned by the same individual, however, if they are separate properties, so that shared access agreement would go with the property. Parking for the project is based on 1 parking space for every 100 square feet of gross floor area. That would require 23 spaces. Then for the employees, there's 1 space required for each 2 employees. So that would allow 6 employees, designating 3 parking spaces. And 26 spaces is what is designed on the site plan. So they do meet the code requirement. Based on our new bicycle ordinance, there would be 3 bicycle parking spaces to be provided somewhere on site, and that would be submitted with their construction drawings, so where they choose to locate those bike parking spaces. There's this property goes through to 16th, we call it 16th Street Place. There's sort of a double name back there, so sometimes you see street, sometimes place, so we call it Street Place. Currently, our zoning code requirements, and I'll talk about this a little bit, and there are some pictures towards the end. Our zoning code requirements, if you were to ask staff, we would need to require a 6-foot high screen wall because the adjacent property to the east is AR 20, which is a residential zone property. In discussions with the applicant, and we want to have that discussion with you tonight, Commission does have the ability to amend that, and so that will be part of the discussion if a 3-foot wall, solid wall, meets the intent of the screening in this location. So I'll come back to that a little bit later at the end when there are some pictures to sort of clarify that fence issue. So this is Main Street up in this general location here, the driveway approximately in the center of the spot. This dashed line here represents where the lot line adjustment would be, leaving the 2 residential units to the south with the restaurant to the north and the parking to the rear. This site here, the site plan also represents our landscape plan, which almost meets the intent of the code. There is another tree that would be required in this area, so there's a couple little technical things that we would be requesting. The subject site, this is as you would see it from Main Street, looking to the east. Also the same property. Previously, you can see a little concrete here. There were mobiles that have been removed a long time ago, so you see a little concrete pad there, but that has nothing to do with this development as proposed. This is the elevation as you would see it from Main Street. The site as it exists is much lower in elevation than the street would be. So you can see this line up here would be the street curb line. So you would be actually looking down a little bit onto the front of the building. This is the rear of the building that would be visible from 16th Street Place and the property to the east. The north elevation, there's a private school on the north side. This is what they would see. However, there's significant vegetation and
I'm sorry, it looks like it's scrunched down. It's not as long as it should be. Something's not like scale.
Sometimes they have the drawings in front of them that are, what you presented. I think sometimes when they're on the screen, they do get distorted along with the color. And this is the south elevation. Basically, if you were where those residential units are, this is the side of the building that you would see. If you look, there's a line going right here in this location. That is currently the existing grade, this existing drive going down into the to the property. The ultimate design would lessen that slope, giving a much more an easier access into the site once the ultimate development was complete. And the colors are, you have original colors in your packet, but they did provide these for the walls, the roof, and trim colors. And the floor plan. Main Street basically being up on this area as you would drive in, coming to the parking area to the rear. Parking area would be back here, and accessing the building into the front. They have designed a couple of parking spaces out here that would be, should they have to-go orders, somebody just wanting to come pick up their food to take home. They would have some outdoor seating in the patio area in this location. This is one of the residential units. The other residential unit, and both of these, as I said, would be remaining and ultimately be on their own parcel. This is the property to the north, the property to the south. Both of those are zoned C1. This is the agricultural residential zone property, which is 16th place is right here. This would be the rear of the parking area, and then that is the residential unit to the east. And this is the existing retail center across the street to the west. There's a view looking to the north along Main Street and looking south along Main Street. And here's the fun ones. Looking at the rear of the property here, the fence here is at the property line. This is looking north along that 16th Street place. And then looking south along the same roadway. So earlier in the discussion, I was talking about the height of the fence. Zoning code, as staff would enforce it, would require a 6-foot solid fence to be located in this area where the chain link currently is. So adjacent to the landscape areas, obviously the driveway, 2 driveway locations would remain open. But we would be asking for a 6-foot fence here. You do, as part of the authority that the commission has, and through the discussions this evening, have the ability to lower that to a 3-foot high solid fence. The roadway improvements is engineering has required a standard that they do off-site improvements. That is the memo that was just handed out hastily here at the end, right before the meeting started, explaining in more detail the intent of what the engineer is requiring. Currently, the roadway is approximately, the right-of-way that the city owns is approximately 20 feet. So that meets a requirement of a fire lane and a driveway access. In his memo, as I understand it, this would be required then up to beach to be chip sealed. But I do think that that's going to be a little bit of a discussion that the applicant would like to have with you also in what would happen. The parking lot that would be over in this area here does have the parking area is back over here, has 2 driveways that would access onto 16th Street. That would not be the primary access, it would be a secondary access, but it would be open if anybody wanted to drive out or in from that direction. So with that, I think that is all the comments I have to say. So I'm available for any questions. We've also got some of the other people here, and the applicant also will be here and have any discussion on specifically those 2 items, the fencing and the road improvements.
Jim, you mentioned additional landscaping needs to be under code required along the back. It's apparently right now there's just some in the center between those 2 driveways.
Correct.
And you're talking about additional landscaping further to the north or south?
No, there would not be additional
Okay.
landscaping
Just an extra tree there?
Probably an extra tree over on that north side of the.
Okay, just between those two driveways?
Correct. One tree is required for every 25 lineal feet of frontage.
Okay.
And they show two, they
right.
would need three.
That's something you could work out with them?
Right.
Okay.
So where this, fence would be located and adjacent to a right-of-way, there's a 10-foot landscape requirement. So if you did have a 6-foot fence right there, the rear setback for a commercial property is 5 feet. So if a 6-foot was required, you would have 5 feet of landscaping, a 6-foot wall, and then 5 feet of landscaping. If a 3-foot wall, screen wall, would be required, you would still have the 5-foot on each side, but I think it would be a more cohesive design and not create a tunnel as you were driving down through the alley. So.
Okay. Commissioner Dow, any questions?
When we talk about a solid fence, what's a solid fence in the definition of the city?
Either masonry or wood slats.
Okay.
Could not be chain link.
All right. My next question is, what is the elevation change from Main Street to this rear lot? Are they equal? Are they?
Yeah.
10 feet.
The elevation difference between Main and 16th.
May 16th?
Well, can you come up to tell,
Because it's about 10.
come on, you want to come up to the microphone? Please.
I'd have to look at the plan again.
Right. It looks to me like it's showing 3330 at the back and up in the front, 3340. All right, he's just going to ask this technical question.
Yeah, the lowest elevation is down where the retention area would be, and that's 3329. And then at the very top is 3400. So 3340, I'm sorry.
10 feet.
So
Thank
that's
you.
11 feet.
Okay, thank you, Jim. You wanna
So Main Street is higher.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, significantly. 10 or 12 feet higher?
11 feet.
11.
Feet higher.
Okay, because that's my concern with the fence would be people entering the property. You're already at a slope, so as they enter from Main, and now as their lights come in at night, are you hitting those houses to the rear? And those people have,
There's only one house there. The next lot's
it's just that one house on that corner that I'm concerned about, is the lights hitting.
We'll discuss that with Jim. Any other technical questions?
No more for Jim.
Vice Chair.
When you say wood slat, chain link with slats,
No, not chain link with flats. That would not be permitted as far as we determined the solid screen fencing is either masonry or the wood, but not chain link with slats.
They could take the chain link off and put wood slats onto it, and that would then be solid.
Correct.
But not just the plastic strips.
Right.
All right.
and I had some more questions about the letter. I know Robert's not here, but just in terms of, trying to think back on past projects. I know the Dairy Queen, which had the alleyway go through that, and we didn't have this kind of improvement through the alleyway that I remember talking about. So I have some, I guess, more questions as I dissolve this, because it seems like, given the circumstances, it seems like a lot.
If I recall, on the Dairy Queen, they were required to improve the alleyway between their two parcels that they had. So the distance through their property was required by engineering to be improved.
Okay. Yeah, I remember talking about that, but
What's, it's 20, you mentioned it's 20 foot wide. They're gonna have to dedicate some more to make it, what, 24 foot wide, or is it right away, or is it 20?
At this point, the city is not asking for any additional right-of-way.
Okay,
It would probably be nice to have, but they're not
yeah,
requesting.
right, okay. Any other questions, sir?
no,
For Jim? All right, Commissioner Dowling.
No questions at this time. I'm kind of still digesting that letter as well and trying
Right.
to get that figured out.
Commissioner Norwood.
Yeah, I have, Jim, why is 16th Street Place a dirt road? I mean, how, I'm trying to find out why it's that way. I mean, and now all of a sudden, because there's a...
Commissioner Norwood, excuse me, could you put your microphone up? Thank you.
Sorry.
You're on television.
I'm not sure what the past development of the city and how it transpired and what left only this 20-foot wide. That would be a question I'd have to get back to you on why it's only 20 feet today.
I mean, is it considered a legal road or thoroughfare as far as width and...
It is a public right-of-way, but it
public road.
would not meet engineering standards as from today.
The other question I have is, on that property, would there be ingress and egress from 16th Street? I think you said there would be.
Yes, there would be from two sides of the parking area.
If there wasn't ingress and egress to 16th Street, then it would be more or less a cul-de-sac or a dead-end street? Is that a possibility? That there would be no ingress and egress from 16th Street Place?
So you're saying that
They
if...
could not enter or exit the property from the back, from the west side, from the east side of the property?
Right.
Right there. Okay.
Correct. If you had a fence all the way along there, it would block off the access to 16th.
Is that something that's possible?
You don't have to.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
The city has.
I think I think the different departments would want to look at that. Fire might have their requirements, building or engineering would have theirs. That's not something we've really.
Well, that might have been covered under the CRB?
No, that was not.
Okay.
It's not cold.
Yeah.
Birch, 16th goes to Beach Street right there. Beach Street takes an east turn, and then it goes down there, and it essentially would dead end from right-of-way, but it goes into a apartment area, which is, so from speaking of road right-of-way for the city, the right-of-way does end at Beach and like 17th. It just kind of dead ends down Beach Street. So it's kind of an L and then it stops.
But it comes out on Birch.
It does, but not on the legal roadway, it doesn't.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a possibility for a disconnect completely from that property as far as 16th Street Place is concerned. That's basically my question.
Our fire chief is here tonight.
We
maybe-
don't know the answer to that.
Right.
That's what I understand.
Right. Our fire chief is here tonight. Maybe he can give us some input here in a minute. Let's get to Jim here first. Commissioner Sherman, any questions of Jim?
Basically, the fence that you're talking about, you said it was 6 feet or 3 feet. Who makes that determination, which is it's supposed to be?
Staff would look at that, and we would have to require 6 feet.
Okay.
Commission does have the authority to look at case-by-case situations and possibly lower that to a 3-foot.
Okay. Because 6 feet seems like that would be a good buffer between the two places. Gosh. And then in terms of the type of offense, who determines that? If it's masonry or
That would be, if commission wanted to put a stipulation on requiring wood or masonry.
Just so there was some like cohesive look to it, so it looked like it all kind of had a nice finished look to it.
Well, that would be something commission could stipulate.
Okay. I think it looks like a good project. I think it's going to really clean up that property a lot. So I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Jim, probably engineering when they look at this, or I don't know who, the question came up about ADA access from the down, since you're going down the slope. Would it meet ADA requirements to access from sidewalk on Main Street, or is you're going to be going down that slope? It's still going to be I don't know who determines.
So are you
What is
saying,
ADA accessible from that sidewalk?
so you're saying up here at the street
Yeah, to
sidewalk?
come on down.
That to come down here, this would need to
Yeah.
be ADA accessible? Is that
Yes, there was
the
a,
question? As well as from the parking lot?
Right.
To the front
right.
of the building? Yeah, I think, let's ask the applicant, the architect,
All right.
that.
I've got another question from Shannon.
Sometimes that detail is shown on
That's fine.
construction drawings.
That sounds good. Thank you. One more question.
Yeah, just kind of coming back to that easement in the back, and I know Robert's not here, so you're getting peppered with stuff that you might have to defer, but there's two properties I know of that in the last few years have changed hands. One is the thrift store, which I know uses that access point, but that 16th Street place, but wasn't required to chip seal or do any improvements on. And I know the Montessori school bought that piece behind them, and there wasn't a requirement. So,
The difference is this is a new development.
well, the school is rehab. It's a new development technically itself too. I don't know that they're issued building permits, but I mean, I have a concern about that because looking at the condition of it now and the benefit to the neighbor, which would be the thrift store, you're essentially asking the applicant to pay for that. And I don't know that that's like I feel is a fair thing in all the years sitting here that we've ever done something like that. The other question I have, and I know this is probably seated in our code, but you know, a wood fence versus chain link fence with slats. A wood fence in this environment stinks. So it's like, yeah, it might be considered a solid fence, but it really technically requires so much maintenance. It's like a not really a quality fence. We've talked about that in our meetings before. And I know there's a question about the height of a 6-foot fence, which maybe provides some shielding of lights coming down, but we're talking about a 6-foot solid, 3-foot solid, and it seems like why wouldn't we allow on that back end, on this area, a chain link with slats on it, which look nice, and I don't know how the applicant feels about that, but it seems like we're cornering in. There's this piece of property here that's been on our main street, that's been not a sightly thing, and we have an opportunity to do something, and it seems like we're putting a lot of emphasis on things that I personally think are a little bit excessive instead of looking at what we can do and the improvements we're getting out of it. So I just want to I know you're not ultimately making those decisions, Jim, but this last minute letter and kind of the stipulations, I think, kind of hogties the applicant down the road for doing something that I don't think they should be responsible for, quite honestly.
Jim, is there a code? Are we talking about a code thing or something we can overrule?
Yeah, I was just reading how it specifically says that it calls 3 feet high and no chain link or wire fence or similar open, non-view obscuring fence.
So with that definition, it says chain link, no, it doesn't specifically state slats. I think there's enough wiggle room where we could require, if slats are in there, the difference between slats and wood, long run, and especially in this location. And I'm not sure if that's even something that but giving the option, I think, here or in future projects, I think is important.
Would a living fence be possible? I mean, there's, a lot of different options relative to that. I mean, you could put a Fotina in there, and within 3 years, you wouldn't see anything on that side of the fence.
Privet, same thing, like they've done
Yeah.
down here at Bocce.
I mean, here's another example of what we did approve, okay? Take the vineyards, right? It's right next to the highway. We didn't require them to put up a concrete wall.
That's fine.
They had A.R.S.
We required them, we allowed them to have a living fence between the development and 89A. Here, we're asking them to put up some kind of a concrete fence between a dirt road and the back end of a property. It doesn't make sense. When you compare the two situations, where you have a potential 450 home development with, put a living fence up, and over here we want a solid fence, whether it be wood, which I agree is not a good idea. And if you had a 3-foot fence, you're really still not going to block that property. So one way or another, it would seem to me that if you had a 3-foot fence, you'd have to have some type of living material in front of it, or let the whole thing go with the living fence, and you'll solve the problem if its property's taken care of properly. And I would also disconnect it, if I could, from 16th Place, and don't hold these people liable for something in the future that it just hangs over their head. If it's going to affect the value of the property in the future also, because that's going to be hanging over the owner's head. That's all I have to say.
I think the applicant will enjoy
Yeah,
the conversation.
I think we
with
can
you,
clarify some of the stuff with the
on
applicant
these.
and their representative. We posed some good questions. We'll see what the answers are. Anything else, Jim? I think,
No, I think that's all I have to say.
okay. Thank you, sir.
So we do have Chris Vernoski here. He's the architect.
And the owners,
And the owners are here.
Yes.
Karla and Juan, they've been feeding Cottonwood for, I don't know, how many years now? 20. 20?
Yeah. All right, sir. For the record, would you give us your name again, sir?
Christian Vernoski, architect. I've been here for 40 years. Moved here in 1979. So I've seen a lot of planning and zoning people come and go. You want to use the start out with neighborhood. We have a picture on the screen, but not on these screens. That subdivision that's to the east of us is what they call the Wildcat Subdivision. And when it was subdivided, it was actually just a bunch of land splits. The Arizona law says that you can divide properties up to 5 times without having a subdivision, without abiding by any subdivision regulations. And that's how that land was split, and that's why the roads, or the easements, not the roads, but the easements are only 20 feet wide. The city would never allow that, but since it was legal with the state, that occurred, and that occurs all over northern Arizona. It's an unfortunate thing. But you're right about 16th Street turning into, is it? Beach. Beach, and then it just dead ends. The easement shows it going all the way across to 17th or 18th Street, but there's a wash there where the road doesn't continue. And I took photographs of that. And the other problem with that road, not only is the easement too narrow, but the utility lines for the overhead power are about 4 feet into that easement. So it has quite a few problems. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a there it is. So you can see,
Laser pointer.
let's see, this is the property that we're proposing here. And all these subdivisions here were Wildcat subdivisions. At this point, though, there are several apartment complexes that are located along East Birch and East Aspen that really take up the whole area, and they don't use as each beach street. But there are a couple properties like this one here, well, there's actually several, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties that actually need that access on each beach street from 16th Street. So that's the situation that you have there. There's this wash that basically is an old wash that the only thing it drains now is there's 2 drainage locations on Main Street, and I think some of the retention area from this project across the street goes into this wash, but the road doesn't continue through here. On this side, it's just like a residential alleyway. There really is no commercial areas adjoining that. I can change it. Yeah, I'm going to go do it. And I think, you know, the way I was looking at this code and what I see in this code, there's a conflict in what we have here. This is the screening up top there. It says, number 7, it says, where a lot adjoins a residential district, a commercial use shall be screened. It doesn't say where it adjoins a right-of-way. It says a commercial district. So there's a difference. If we were to have a road on that side, if you were to put a 6-foot fence up, you wouldn't have visibility to get onto the road. So the city has a bunch of different rules for visibility getting onto a road. So I called Jim up and I said, Jim, we got this conflict. So he says, okay, let's try to work this out together and come up with a solution that can suit both things. And just hearing the discussion from you guys and the discussion that Jim and I had, it would be nice to do just a landscaping screen. I mean, that would be, you know, the best solution to it. I have some photographs of, you know, I went down there and took pictures of all the properties that border that. And the one property does have a screen, and it just, well, you'll see the picture. It's on 16th Street. Get on 16th Street. And then we'll just go through the images. I tried to get organized with this. This is a slat screen fence that's along with this, I forget which business that is.
Thrift store.
The thrift store. And you can see it's really aesthetically not pleasing. And
He's going to have to index the picture from the...
will that go forward? Okay, and so this is the slat screen. You can see here the utility poles are about 4 feet off this. That doesn't look 4 feet there. That might be 3 feet, but down here is about 4 feet. And then there's a tiny road, and then turn to the right. And then we have apartments on this side. So I walked over here, next slide, and I took a picture of it. And I'm like going, is that really what we want? I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm going, no. Next slide. And then what's really odd here is this steepness in the road. I think that's a problem for anything that happens with this road in the future. But you notice that this next business built their building right on the property line on the alley. And they don't have a screen on the other part of theirs. Next one. And then this is the turn. And I think this is where our fire chief would be concerned, because he's not going to get around there in his big fire truck. It's, but you can see here where these poles are like 4 feet off the property line. And then this is where the wash goes through and doesn't allow 16th Street to continue to Aspen, which is kind of a problem. I think it would be great if we could also take this 4 feet that's non-usable as a road and landscape that too. I mean, I think my clients would be willing to put some trees and bushes and landscape that and maintain that part of it. I think it would be much more aesthetically appeasing to the people, you know, on the other side of 16th Street. And that's the wash where the road ends. And then this is looking down from the other side from Aspen Street. So these are residences on both sides of it. And then I just had a bunch of pictures of different screen situations and different commercial situations that border 2 streets. And border 2 streets where one street is on a residential district where there are no walls. But I don't know if we really need to go through that. I mean, this issue is pretty straightforward, and I like the ideas that you guys came up with and what Jim and I talked about. So we're willing to make a balanced approach. The one thing I would think, though, is originally I was hoping not to have use the access onto 16th Street, but leaving an opening for a fire truck that if there unfortunately were some kind of occurrence on our property, that instead of making a 3-point turn in our parking lot, he could just turn on 16th Street and get out. But I guess he could run over a couple bushes. I don't know, those fire trucks are pretty expensive and they don't want to scratch them up, but I don't know, the fire chief might talk to that.
Okay, can I ask a question?
But these are photographs where different businesses, this one right here, you know, backs up to a residential area in Main Street. You've got to go. This is another property where it backs up to residential. Here's another one. See, there's unique situations all over town. I mean, it's not one size fits all. And this is where you have commercial areas on this side and residential on that side. And there's no wall requirement. And then, of course, you got Old Town Cottonwood, where we have all these alleyways, and there's no walls. These people are, you know, building right up on the property line. Same with this location. That's Bocce, and the hotel here, where it backs up to commercial and there's no wall. This is the chocolate factory. This is a nice residential street, and it doesn't have the wall. And then these are these alleyways that you guys were talking about just recently. The same thing. It's, but anyway, that's my little research for this to show that there's different ways to handle this, and we want to do the aesthetically pleasing thing and you know, make the neighbors happy and make this project look nice. And so we're willing to work with you guys and with the staff to do that.
Commissioner Dowling, you have a question?
I'm just trying to make sure I get this. Your intent then wasn't to use 16th Street for any kind of normal access, rather to have that be there for emergency purposes, let's say?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to ask, because usually they can put a chain across it or something like that with a Knox box or whatever, you know, I know they have options for that. I would
or you
say
could
that
just put a simple curb up.
Yeah, right. I would just guess that if you wanted to explicitly use 16th Street for access so that you didn't have to have people coming and going off Main Street, it would make more of a case for improving 16th Street.
Right.
If you're not going to use that on a regular basis for access, I guess I would think that it wouldn't make as strong of a case for that at all.
Yeah, I just got this when you guys got it.
Yeah.
I was a little bit, because we are bringing the water line, a 6-inch water line, 400 feet down 16th Street to our property. That's where it ends. So that's quite an expensive addition to the city's infrastructure.
Any other comments before we ask some questions? More questions?
Do you have questions
All right.
for me?
Commissioner Dowling, questions? Yeah.
My biggest concern is not necessarily how beautiful we make that alleyway with fence or whatever. My concern is that one residence that sits on the corner that faces west, that would be impacted by traffic coming in with headlights. It would be a very short window of headlights hitting it. But even by the elevation, if it's not 6 foot tall, it's still going to, vehicles coming onto the property, in my opinion, will illuminate that building to the east. I know that it's a very small window of time, but I currently live within the confines of the airport tower light, which I love. But somebody didn't.
Right.
So they had to shield it. So if the airport tower light impacts somebody, I can imagine that people pulling onto that property may impact and that house in the future. So that would be my main concern, and how we would remedy shielding that. Again, that's my one concern of that.
Well, can we work with the staff and look at the options? I don't know how that house lines up with the driveway. You know, when people are on Main Street, their light's going to be over the top of the house. It's when they're coming down is when, you know, at some point it's going to shine, but I don't know how it aligns up with the house. And we could definitely do some sort of landscape screening to offset that.
Vice Chairman.
Are you done?
Actually, I'm sorry, I have one more question. I completely, with the way the building sits comparative to Main, you're going to see a lot of the roof line of the building, right? How much utility is going to be on that roof, and how much is going to be?
Well, the parapet's awfully high. I have a three-dimensional model picture of it.
Okay.
I didn't render it all, but my draftsman had a lazy weekend, and he decided he would model it for me. I said, oh, great.
Yeah, I would just hate to be driving down Main and all you see is
No, you don't.
air conditioners.
The parapet's higher.
Okay.
The roof that's, it should say, it's not in the pictures, it should be in the models.
The west elevation
Models,
shows
right
a
there.
sign up there, actually.
Yeah.
Doesn't the west elevation also have a sign up there in the front? Or a spot for a sign?
Yeah, he kind of, go ahead.
Like a monument.
Yeah, pick all three of them. There's a model of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, let me get that. This is a flat roof that's going to have a colored simulated, what do you call it, rib roof on it, and then this is all concrete tiles, and then this has a parapet, and the equipment's going to be all located behind that parapet. So you won't see that equipment.
So that parapet's high enough
Yeah.
to shield it from walking on Main or driving on Main?
Yes.
Or all?
Because Main Street, go ahead. Check the next one. You know, if somebody's standing here, their eye's going to be about here, and that's where your eye's going to be in the car. This is the north elevation. This is the wash here. But their eye's going to be about right here. It's going to be about right even with this roof. So this parapet is, well, this is 10 feet. This is 16 feet. It's going to be 6 feet taller.
So it's going to be 6 foot tall off the base of the roof?
No, it's not. It's going to be 6 foot taller than this fascia.
How
So,
much? How much?
It's going to be, well, it varies. On the south side, it's maybe 3 feet. On the north side, it's about 4.5 feet. So the air conditioning units and everything are set on this side. We have two exhaust vents that are about in the middle of the building, and then an ice machine compressor that's on the south side, which is a smaller compressor.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair.
Jim, will you go back to that other model, the one previous to this? Are the models to scale? Because it seems like that
Oh, yeah, they're to
eating,
scale.
because that eating patio seems like
Well,
it's,
yeah, but, you know, when you turn them,
okay,
you get
that's
the
what I meant.
distortion, yeah.
Yeah,
You do
okay,
the-
all right.
But they are to scale, and they're very
Okay, all right.
difficult to create.
Yeah, even from that other view.
Right.
So I guess on the issue of the screening, you would need to look at that from the perspective of coming down, because the difference in elevation is 11 feet. So a car initially coming down is 11 feet above the
Right.
adjoining property. So those headlights coming down are going to hit like that narrow window. So of shining through, I don't even know if you could accomplish screening at 6 feet because of the distance and
Right.
going back to that other property. So that might wash out. So
Well, that's why I think-
I'd be hesitant to make a decision or recommendation until you get that figured out, because that's a long distance from the opening. That's such a deep lot. And then you've got the easement, and then where you, like you said, the placement of that house, I think, is not dead center to that. I think it's offset to the left.
Right,
So
it is.
I would look at that before my recommendation.
And they're up
is-
higher, a little bit higher, I think, their lot is.
But I had a question about coming back to the fence. So we've talked about some options, because would you take out the existing chain link fence and just put in vegetation? Okay, so I didn't know if you wanted that back property secured at all, or if you take out a section of that. I think a fire truck, if it's a good idea to have that exit, but they're probably going to be doing a 3-point turn to get onto 16th place anyway, because that is so narrow. It's 20 feet.
Well, yeah, but we would have a 25-foot area that they could swing around in.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked, are you taking out chain link, the whole fence, or a section of the fence?
Oh, I'd take the whole chain link in.
Yeah. So, you know, and the other, just on screening, I would tend to agree with as we read in code, the screening, that we have the ability to determine this. I don't think it has to be solid. I'm talking more for us. And I think when you show pictures and you show the slats on the back of the thrift store there that those apartments are looking at, the other option that we've talked about is a solid block wall. I don't know that that's a better option. So I kind of agree over here that we don't need to dress up an alleyway that, especially in that part of it, really doesn't have a lot of visibility. I think if we meet the fundamentals of, if we're going to use it, if our fire department can get in and out and come to an agreement on the screening, I think that's an important thing. So,
Okay, Mr. Dowell.
I covered it earlier as far as my main question was just the intended use of those back exits. And I was like, I don't know that we have any of the DRB notes. So we're getting letters with references to the DRB, but I don't have any updates on that one. So overall, I think it's going to be okay. It looks good. I think it fits in, it's a good use of that location. Just figuring out the differences on the screening and on how they want to decide what to do with 16th Street. And I know that the fire department probably has, requirements for getting in and getting out, and
Yeah, I don't plan to have curbs around the planters in our parking lot.
Right.
Just for that reason, so that, it gives the fire trucks, they don't have to jump a curb to swing a 3-point turn in our parking lot. You might have to knock a few cars out of the way, but they don't have to jump a curb.
But strictly from a design review process of focusing on the building and some of the specifics like that, I'm happy with it, but I don't really have any more questions than that.
Mr. Norwood, any questions of the applicant?
I'm done.
Commissioner?
I don't have any questions. You answered a number of different things, and I really, after looking at some of the pictures that you showed with the solid wall and all that, I think a natural landscape would just be more
It would be.
aesthetic to the area. Easy upkeep.
Yeah. Well, not easier,
Well, not really easy upkeep, but
but it'd be much nicer for the area.
Yes.
I agree.
Just a couple questions. The sidewalk issue I brought up earlier,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that's going
no.
to be ADA
From
compliant.
streets, you don't have to provide ADA access off a street,
Okay,
because that's considered what the natural grade is. But from our parking lot in the back where the ADA parking places are to the entry of the building, that's ADA.
Oh, okay,
Everything
sure.
within the building's ADA.
yeah, so from that parking area,
Right.
they can,
You can just imagine Jerome if they ever had to,
yes.
I mean, it just wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, I did, on that note, I did have to specifically grade an ADA access on 89 in Sedona from all the way from 89A up to the entry to the building. So that kind of is, yeah, okay. I just throws
But if
me
you
a little
read the
bit of a curve.
ADA, they state that from,
Okay.
the street, you don't really have to provide it, but, Sedona might have required that as a special condition.
Question on the letter.
Yes.
One of the requirements, or one of the conditions I wanted to go with you is, would you have any problem agreeing to 1A on the back page?
I don't think so. I think that's a,
In other words, the owner would agree and to not oppose the establishment of a improvement district where everybody would contribute, right?
correct. I don't think that would be a problem.
All right.
Where
And-
everybody.
And then number B, this would be recorded in the deed, or, I'm not sure legally
Correct.
how that run, but
Right.
those two probably wouldn't be a real problem.
No.
Okay. I would agree, it seems like an undue burden.
Right.
We've dealt it, worst, like they had sidewalks to nowhere on previous development, and so forth. Okay, those are the only two things I had. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Fire chief is here. Sir, would you please come up and enlighten us?
Turn the lights on.
Yes, let's do that.
I might need to read.
Okay, sir. Your name?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mike Kirkendall, Fire Chief.
Welcome,
You want me
sir.
to start it, or you want me to answer questions? There was a number of questions posed. I'll try to hit on. Let me give you a little bit. I have a little more background on it because, to be real honest with you, first of all, the alignment with as I've been talking to Jim about, the alignment of Main Street is actually 16th Street if you go north on it. So that's why that's 16th place. And
Yeah,
that's-
16th.
So I'm trying to use that terminology a little clearer on that. That is a dedicated roadway. It was on a plat somewhere in the history, as well as East Beach. Those are considered streets. They're not just alleyways. Those are dedicated streets. We know that they don't meet a lot of the things that we would like to have those meet. Certainly is a thorn in my side as the fire chief because, as has been noted, it's how we access some properties in there. Yeah, we can kind of make it around that corner down at Beach and 16th when everything's trimmed right and do it. I've been talking to Robert. In fact, we've went out and looked at it. The question that somewhat is, it needs to have a thorough survey to figure out where the city's property line is and where the homeowners and the property owners' lines are on that. Our hope is that that street will be upgraded at some time in the future. Funds are not there right now to do that, and so that is something, because as a point, it is an access point for us. We see also some problems with some future developments that are moving down towards those apartments on the east end, because right now the natural access is a private drive through back around to this. So we foresee some problems with that. I give you that as just history. As far as what is done to that road, that's up to the engineering department. As far as if it's going to be used in any semblance of being a fire lane, then the requirements for a fire lane are 20 feet wide, 13 feet 6, all-weather construction to support a fire truck. We normally say about 80,000 pounds. I'm just trying to answer the questions as they kind of came up. As far as access back to that, the fire department, not necessarily would we require access back to 16th Street. What the code says is that a dead-end fire apparatus access road, which essentially the driveway to a business becomes, because that's the only access we have to that. If it's in excess of 150 feet, it has to be provided with an approved area for turning around fire apparatus. And that, again, that's improvement on our end. So from Chris's thing, that it may not be something where we have to turn and make 37. We have some such standards for that. You've seen them many times. The size of a cul-de-sac, or if it's a hammerhead turnaround, what those dimensions are. Whether those work on this piece of property or not, I don't know. And that's something we'd have to look at in plan review. That's what would be precluded if it's dead ends into that property and doesn't carry through onto 16th Street. If it does carry through onto, I'm 16th place, see, I'm even saying it now, onto 16th place. If that doesn't work and we do need to use access through that onto 16th place, as Mr. Vernoski said, we have to make sure that we're able to make that turn on there. So any curb, anything that's done has to be wide enough to allow us to make a turn on to 16th place at that point in time. Hopefully I answered kind of all of the questions from the fire department standpoint, but I'm open for whatever you want to throw at me.
Vice Chair, are you clear?
No, you answered them, thank you.
Yeah, as far as the treatment of the road, that's engineering. Engineering decides how and what on that and do it. But our hope is, no matter what it's done on that road, our hope at the fire department is that sooner rather than later, we see improvement on that road as a whole to bring it up to a better standard than what it is now.
Mr. Dowling, anything with the fire chief?
I think that covered it for me generally, yeah.
Mr. Darwood?
I have no more questions.
No questions.
Okay.
Chief, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Okay. Any other, we're going to have a comment here, okay. Let's give that. Your name, sir, for the record.
My name's Phil Turbell. I live in Clarkdale. I own a 12-plex property on Beach Street where Beach Street dead ends. Mr. Dowell was correct. Birch Street and then 16th Place comes off of it. It makes a hard right-hand turn and it goes down to Beach Street and it becomes paved when it enters my property. As it exits my property, it's not paved again and it's impassable. So we have people that wander down there that turn around, they're lost and they're trying to get out. So my philosophy or my thought process is I would not encourage more traffic to use 16th Place until further improvements are made for the way out, because currently the only way out then is to take my private driveway to go back out to Birch Street, and we get a lot of traffic just exactly that way. Can I use your phone? Yeah, thanks.
Maybe the one that Chris had, I think his map is bigger, if you go back to his folder.
Further east.
Yeah.
Google Maps.
Yeah.
I think any traffic that's encouraged to enter and exit off of 16th Place, you're asking for traffic confusion. So I think the applicant does have a valid suggestion to not be using 16th Place. Maybe it's as an emergency exit if needed. I'm not confident to speak on that. I own that 12-plex right there. So we're talking about 16th Place coming in here, making a hard right-hand turn and coming down here. It's all dirt. It's not graded properly. It's usually during the monsoon season, it's about a foot deep in mud. Here, it enters into blacktop pavement and it goes 200 feet and stops. Beach Street right-of-way continues on, but it's a drainage because it drains from, well, it drains from here, down Beach Street, around the corner, down the corner, and clear on down the way. So it's totally impassable on beyond this, and I don't know where it goes out, to be honest with you, if it goes out anywhere or dead ends.
I look where I can find,
Yeah. All I know is everybody likes to use my paved driveway right there. The garbage truck included. The neighbors, they come in there and make the corner, and they knock the wall down here at the corner because they can't quite make the, I didn't set it up to be turning left because I don't own the property to the left, but the garbage trucks always knocks the wall down, so I set up that wall about 3 or 4 times a year. It's dry stack block, so it's not difficult to reset it up, and I get my exercise. I don't have to have a membership at the gym to do that, but this is pretty much impassable quite a bit of the time of the year. So you've got this portion of 16th Street. The property I think that you're referring to that might have any visibility for light pollution would be here. There's a mobile home that sits quite a ways back into the property. If I'm not mistaken, 16th Place and this property sit above that parking lot. So once a car enters that parking lot, and I think my understanding from what I saw the proposal, it looked like it would be coming down the center of the parcel, would be coming down along about that property line. So the lights, I think that as they enter the property and they would come up over the curb area, the lights would go up and then immediately they would go down because I saw them extending this slope down into this parking lot, and I believe this parking lot would be setting lower than this parcel here. So I don't know what you want to do on vegetation or block walls or chain link fences or whatever else. I just think that I would discourage exterior or traffic going in and out the back as much as possible, because all I'm doing is I'm looking for more traffic coming through my private drive.
Right.
The city engineer before told me to put a gate across there and shut the alleyway off. I didn't do it because people need to come and go, and it's muddy back there, and if I live back there, and I don't want to be a horse's ass to my neighbors, so I didn't do that. But I was complaining because I couldn't slow them down, and I have lots of little kids that play in this grass area here, and they kind of wander out sometimes into that private drive, and I was having difficulty with traffic. I really don't want to encourage additional traffic coming out of the back of a commercial business and wandering back into that area. So you're right, Chris, I appreciate that exact comment. It gets difficult the farther you go back in on Beach Street. Beach Street's kind of an extension, or kind of a figment of our imagination. It's more of a dirt alleyway. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, with that, I will close the floor to the public. Mr. Dowell, I'll start with you, sir.
Well, I think it's a great project. I like it. It's, Maine, you've been a fixture of this community for a very long time, and I've always heard good comments about your food. And in fact, everybody got really, really excited when they thought you were moving to the Rocking Bee. Everybody thought, yes, you're moving to Rocking Bee, and then they're like, no. So there's a lot of excitement with your business. With that said, the only real issues I see is impacting that residence to the east. If you're not going to be using 16th Place, I don't have an issue with it staying in its current condition. Again, my only real concern is impacting that residence, and if those lights don't hit it, then I really wouldn't have any issue at all. And I would strongly discourage 16th Place being used for an exit other than for emergency purposes. So if a solid wall had to be put up to fix that, then so be it. But I don't think the upgrade needs to be there for aesthetic purposes.
I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Dowling.
I think I've covered everything I had to guess about or talk about. So.
I think everything's been covered. I just think it would be a nice project for that neighborhood. And I'm certain that whatever cosmetics you can do, you will do to improve the eastern side of the property.
I think it's a great project. I look forward to visiting your restaurant.
Vice Chair?
Outside of, I know there was an additional landscape for another tree and that stuff. I think it's a great project. That lot has been a tricky lot for many years, and it's on Main Street. So I think this is such a great project with a business that has been an asset to the community for years. So I think it's wonderful. I take real issue with this letter that we got tonight from the city, when I know there's requirements that the applicants have a deadline that they can't submit anything. This is the first time we've seen it. It's the first time they've seen it. And I don't even think we should address it. I think it puts an undue burden on the applicant to improve a street that we know is a city street. Even though it's not up to city standards width-wise, it is a city street that really improves the thrift store more than anybody else, because they use that alleyway too, and most of it would be along that. And I know we brought up Dairy Queen, their improvement of the alley, which is correct, but they're using both sides of the road too. So I think, quite honestly, this shouldn't be included. It shouldn't have even made it here tonight because nobody else saw this. Maybe the staff did, but we didn't, applicant didn't. And I think it puts this on a wonderful project. It puts this burden. I quite honestly feel like, and Robert's not here to talk about it tonight either, it puts this burden of improving a city street on the applicant. And I know there's not a lot of funding for street improvements, but I don't think this is the way to do it. So that's outside of the concerns that Phil has for people using it. I think Beach Street is named Beach Street because it is just a sandy mess. There's no water, it's just sand. So I love the project, and I think I'm glad something is going in there that is a proven entity in our community.
I think we need to, with regard to land, something with regard to stipulation 7 as written. How does everybody want to do that? That's the screen wall across the back. Want to just do a
Living fence.
a what?
Living fence?
Yeah, living fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in the what you brought up, there's enough discretion in the language that allows us to make that determination. I think it would be better for everybody, really, quite honestly.
Okay. With regard to the 16th Street improvements, I would agree with the vice chairman. You know, it's sort of hitting below the knees to come in here at this late hour with this letter. He is proposing some conditions, possibly future conditions. If we were to include it, we can just ignore it, or
I don't think we should.
shouldn't even consider it. That's fine. I don't have a real problem with that. It's, you know, I could see an improvement district maybe being developed with all the owners, but they'd all have to agree if something wanted to be done. But I think the city is, you know, city wants to develop, and that's an alleyway as far as I'm concerned. It may be a street name, but we have alleys that are better constructed than that street down through there, and we certainly don't want to encourage any more traffic on that dirt alleyway than anywhere else. So, and I think the fire chief answered our question whether it could be used for emergency uses only, kind of thing. With regard to just going over these other stipulations, Jim, with regard to number 2, the Code Review Board, is this kind of thing going to come up in their code review, or is that at this late hour, or what's?
If this were to go back to code review, we would discuss that in
It wouldn't go back to
detail.
code review, right?
Right. it would not.
Okay, it's been done.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's been correct. In May, that was done.
All right, and then number 3, require complies with all building, engineering, fire. And what about the engineering requirements? That's an open-ended.
Let me read the stipulation that came out of code review. So this is one of the engineering requirements. This development will be responsible for making roadway improvements to 16th Place. That was the extent of the comment.
So,
And sort of then followed up with what you're looking at tonight.
so if we were to approve this with that stipulation as read, with number 2 and number 3 are sort of tied together, we're basically locking them into this agreement, right? Or this letter.
If you read that stipulation as it's written, then yes, that would compel them to comply with that code.
We really don't make that determination.
But that's your,
Yeah, but that would be a determination beyond us. If we vote this the way it's written, we're not locking, I guess I don't want to force an issue that where maybe it shouldn't be.
Cut to the chase. We feel like we just caught a hot potato from engineering. Do we need to give it back to them, or are we stuck with it?
either giving it back to them, or if you make a stipulation that sort of bypasses what engineering has stated.
Yes, Barry.
Mr. Chairman, not bypass, but maybe if you can make a stipulation that applicant can move on with the process, but still work with engineering staff for options.
Okay, that would be under number 3, stipulation number 3.
So it wouldn't lock them into one way or other. It will be still working for other options.
How would you see that to be, what stipulation will we make that under? Would number 3? Yes, Mr. City Manager.
Ron Corbin, City Manager. My apologies for Robert not being here tonight and me being late. I was at another meeting tonight. So this was brought up in code review, and this was his attempt. He never heard back from the applicant, or they never were able to exchange. So this was his first attempt at a compromise. We are trying to work with the applicant to spend as little money as possible to improve it, but council's been very clear that the way that unimproved areas get improved is when people do development, they have to pay for the adjacent roads and sidewalks and those kinds of things. So we think it is unreasonable for them to build a road that's this wide and then dirt on both sides. So he's trying to attempt to at least get it started as development comes into the area and require others. So this was his, I believe, his first attempt. I also saw it about the same time you guys did tonight, so I apologize. But I think that was his first attempt. So if you approve it as written, it just means that we're going to continue to work with them until we get to an agreement. So this isn't in stone. We'll still work with the developer and the business owners to make it come to fruition. We're all looking forward to Juanitas.
It seemed like there's a contradiction in his,
If I told you I understood it, I'd be lying.
well,
I did
yeah,
not
well,
quite
I
understand
just
it
know
myself.
In number 1, it says the owners would agree not to oppose establishment of an improvement district in the future. But then you get down to C, and then it says the developer shall construct the improvement. So which way is it?
Options. Well, I think it's working with the What we've done in a couple places or have offered is to let them put money in escrow, and so then when we get ready to build the road, they can build, that money's in there, so they've done their contribution to that portion of the entire road. So that's one option that we're allowing or considering doing. The other is to go ahead and have them do the improvements or temporary improvements until we do it. So I really do believe it's options that we would work with the owners to figure out.
Either way, we're not making that determination
Correct.
from this.
Okay, I just don't want to,
No, if you prove it as is, we continue to work with the owner and the developers to get to the best solution possible for them and us.
okay. I think probably then the only,
And again, my apologies for the city engineer not being here.
I think Chris.
yes, Chris, can you come up, please?
At the code review meeting, the city engineers didn't know what to do. And they said they would get back to me, and they got back to me beginning of this meeting. I think an improvement district's the way to go. I don't think that one property owner along that road has to foot the bill for all that. I think that's really not the way,
Right.
America works. But
We would agree with that.
to be part of an improvement district when the city comes up with a design that's usable. And we haven't seen or heard anything about that.
Yes. With regard, Chris, stay at the microphone for a second. We have, I'm looking at our stipulations, and you've gone over those, 10 items, with maybe we'll make some modifications to the screen wall requirement in the back. Are those going to cause you any other problems?
No.
Okay.
They all look fine.
Okay, good.
It's just, the screen wall was a thing that Jim and I noticed and we discussed before this meeting, and then this road improvement thing is a pretty big issue.
That's something will go on.
Right.
You'll continue. Very fine, sir. Thank you.
I make a motion, we approve DR 19-009 Juanita's Restaurant with the following stipulations. 1, the project is developed in conformance with the development plans as approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the August 19, 2019 meeting. 2, that the project conforms to Code Review Board comments dated May 24, 2019, and that will continue. 3, the project complies with all building, engineering, and fire department requirements. 4, a lot split shall be completed to create 2 new parcels prior to the issuance of building permit. 5, a shared parking agreement between the 2 parcels shall be completed and approved by the city of Cottonwood prior to issuance of a building permit. 6, the trash enclosure shall be screened with solid materials to comply with section 404.s.1.a and b. 7, the screen wall on the east side of the property adjacent to 16th Street Place shall consist of a living wall screen. 8, the landscape area along 16th Street shall be extended to the length of the adjacent parking spaces and be a minimum of 10 feet wide. All landscape areas shall meet the requirements of section 407 of the zoning code. 9, identify a minimum of 3 bicycle parking spaces. 10, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 24 months of the Planning Commission action.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second motion.
Commissioner Norwood seconds the vice chairman's motion. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood,
Aye.
Commissioner Sherman,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
I
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yes, we're looking forward to it.
You'll have this done by December, right?
Okay. We don't have any discussion items tonight. Do we have some informational
I
reports?
just want to update you with some of the projects you have seen in the past. And one of them is Yavapai and Main Street corner. And
Can we go outside with your conversation, please? Thank you. Yeah.
And it used to be known as Fandango Building. Now then, when Horns came, and that will be a hotel. and they pulled a demolition permit for the existing residential unit in the back, so that project is moving along. And other one is Starbucks, and that shell building was completed, and TI is almost completing, so it's getting there. And lastly, it's known as a Rocking Bee restaurant. It is Mineros now, and they are finished and open for business.
Yes, and they've done a really excellent job, far and beyond what we require in landscaping and decoration. I think they've done a really,
It came out really nice.
yeah, real nice job there. Some of our bigger projects are still in the apartment projects. The two monster ones are still working
Still
through, as
going
far as you know.
on. Yes, it's in the
Okay.
pipeline.
Okay, and
So is Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't mention that.
yeah, they're Dunkin'. Yeah,
working on
the
the
coffee houses are coming right along. Yes, it seems like everybody else is
Right.
delayed for one reason or another. Have you heard from Oxendale that we approved that second-story addition? Did they ever?
They're in the building department. They are working with the building department and dealing with, their own permit process with building.
Okay. And the condo project down the street,
Yes, Lamaine.
Lemaine?
Again, that's in the building department process. As you know, they changed their basement versus not basement right now. So again, it is in the pipeline. It's going on.
Okay. All right.
Immaculate Conception, the rectory, and
Right. There are several meetings for different areas, but they're not at this stage for planning yet, but meetings are still going on.
Good.
Jim mentioned something about the Olive Garden. How's that coming?
You said Costco too, right?
Yeah. There could be on this televised meeting tonight, somebody
somebody
from
will
Olive
hear.
Garden watching.
Somebody needs to hear you. That's all for now.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Any other things, Commissioners? We're all set? That being, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Phil, thank you for your input, sir.